Has been a day of technical issues and whatever. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Erudition Network, the interactive Black History and Knowledge session. Again, I apologize. We were running into so many technical issues getting ready to get on today. It's really frustrating. It seems like every Thursday that I get on, there seems to be some sort of drag in the internet, some sort of issue going on, and I'm a bit tired of it. It's very frustrating to try to do an interactive show and a knowledge show. It seems like everything drops. And then I run so many other shows. You know, we do Tina's show on Monday, we do the boys show on Wednesday. And I try very hard in the background while their shows are on to keep it streaming. But it seems like every time I get on, we're just having something's not right. So we're going to have to figure that out, whether it's internal or external, whatever it may be. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Erudition Network Interactive Black History and Knowledge session. I'm your host, Eddie Phillips. This session is dedicated to teaching Black history and to providing knowledge and understanding. If I am breaking up on your end, please let us know so I can at least know why people are responding. Mike, real man up, the man up, real talk. Mike and Phil, hey, good to see you, man. Thank you all for joining us. We're greatly late tonight. Trying to fix some of these issues. I'm getting like a pig on my internet, and I have no idea how it's playing on Facebook or YouTube. So that's very frustrating. Yeah, very frustrating. As you said, it's a little choppy. Yeah, this seems to be the common cause, the common thing. And I don't know if it's because something's running in the background while I'm on, and I've been trying to figure it out. So it's a mess, man, trying to figure this thing out. Usually when I'm in the background, I can kind of try to troubleshoot. It's hard to troubleshoot while you're actually on the run. I'm sure you know that, man. I'm sure you know how that works. Tonight. I don't want to belabor this or push it a little further. I asked my son, my oldest, what I'm going to do for the next couple of episodes coming up here for Erudition for the interactive is that I am going to have my sons on each one of them, and then probably all of them together in the end. And we're going to talk about this this complicated history of Black fathers and sons. I think it's a conversation that we need to have. I think it's something that we need to address. I asked him earlier today. He's in full disclosure, as we were saying recently, he'd been ill when we went to Chicago. I'm very happy that he's doing better. But I asked him to come on to sit down with his dad and have this discussion. All right, so I'm gonna bring him on. This is my son. Teddy, you're here. Stop looking crazy.
Hello, everybody.
Why'd you say it like that?
I didn't know that you could hear me.
You sound really hello, everybody. Hey, man. So here's the issue. I know we're having issues with the internet, and I greatly apologize for that. But I still want to get this show done. I think it's important. I think it's something that we need to talk about. I guess my first question to you, as my son, but just as a son, um, what is your idea? What do you, at your age, believe that a father, like we could say father, but a black father, what do you believe are some of the challenges um, that sons have in dealing with black fathers today?
And I would say connection. It's a not in the sense that you're not trying that black fathers do not try to connect with their children, but as black men, you're always got to adapt to something new of what's going on out here in the world. And then when you go out, when you try to communicate with your father of, hey, this is what's going on out here. Some are not as receptive to hear, well, back in my day, we were doing, but we have changed greatly from then. In some ways, we just didn't meet the mark, such as discrimination in other areas. But yeah, I would say it would be connection. Because even on the black fathers end of the people that I talk to who are black fathers, or newly fathers, because a lot of people my age, they just recently celebrated their first Father's Day as a father. So it would still be about connection. Because even on their end, they say, well, I can't tell you this until you're this age. So it's finding that balance of how do I reach you without losing you. I think that's
Okay.
our greatest challenge right now.
So on that note, what do you I agree with you. I did believe that connection becomes a problem, especially if you're not open to realizing changes in society and things going on in fatherhood and things like that. Um, but I would also ask, what do you think as a son, right? What is your expectations of um, connecting or talking to um, your father?
Yeah, you have to be willing to have that conversation. And be honest, it's going to be awkward, but it's how you approach it. It could be a funny awkward of you just bust in the room and be like, hey, son, uh, here's what we're going to talk about. You sit down real close and you go, you enjoying yourself? Things like that. It's about your approach and how you do it. Now, for some people, you do have to judge it with your children of, I don't think he enjoys this too much. So, some, they might be quirky enough to enjoy it. But you need to, we need to find a way in to have pertinent discussions that will help you as you get older. Because as you get, time goes by really quickly. And then before you know it, you're an adult. You have these urges, you have these motives of, well, I want to start pursuing thing things that I would like, and I think you dropped out. I would like to start pursuing things that I would like, have a family of my own, become a father, and you want ready communication with that. However, what I would say is that how your expectations as a son, not only would you have to be willing to accept that conversation, but be able to read around what they're trying to say. Because some people do not have the language for whatever's going on. You might say, like, there's so much slang out here right now. They might not know and be like, well, that's not how that works, but I know where you're coming from. But unfortunately, a lot of people in my generation are very disrespectful. So, and they like to play semantics too much. And it's not just with older generations, it's annoying to even people within the millennial generation that were not raised that way. And it gives us a bad look. Yes, how do we reach people without losing them? Because in the end of the day, if all I'm doing is talking, trying to browbeat you with whatever I'm trying to communicate to you, there is no reception.
Okay.
Every generation has had the connection problem. As a dad, being able to adapt and adjust and changing times is important. Yes, it's very important. And not just as you as the dad, but them as the your son. You need to understand they have an older mentality. All it does is adapt. You just build on. Now you could, if you just willingly, as exactly willingly, okay, find a medium, you can have these conversations. But so many, oh well, I don't think he'll like that. That's not what he does. He's always doing this. And then you mentally kill yourself before you even have the conversation, and there's no development there. Why are black fathers stereotyped as not being in the household? There are many fathers of all ethnicities that in the household it just completely uh oh, here it is. In the household, but black fathers get a bad rep. Well, that's also a scapegoat because even that word that you use, stereotypes, we know that a stereotype is not correct. It's your logical assumption based on whatever you see. And we know that whatever is out here right now is heavily exaggerated. Now, use YouTube as an example. We have over glorified this idea of sex so much that it's made its way into just little things. I'm pretty sure most of you have seen that Google commercial of the iPhone where it's supposed to be promoted about the camera and posting pics, but the song, not even gonna repeat the lyrics, has a sexual innuendo in it, which is very obvious. Because the only thing that's rhyming with pick, we understand these things, but the problem is you have over exaggerated these things in society so much that now they become your reality. Same thing with black fathers not being in the household of, well, it's been out there so long as now it's memes, it's still here, that now we just accept, okay, well, that must be the problem. When and then when steps to counter that stereotype is presented, you're not accepting of it. So yes, it's a scapegoat of, well, they're not in the household. This must be the problem. Why? Because it's a stereotype. Why? Because we see it in our television, music, history. It's everywhere that you can see it because visual is everything in our modern world.
So
That's
I
how
didn't say anything. I let you explain those things, and as I was sitting here, because I didn't get a chance to type out some of these points of what and I'm going to share them. What I see is problems, right? Problems. You astutely laid out many of the problems, but there are a lot of problems that are going on in our communities. Excuse me. And so I wanted to while you were doing that, kind of write that out, and kind of now let's try to share this screenshot here. I know I'm asking it to do a lot, but
I know. I hope it doesn't drop us because it does want to. It's trying to snow over here, and I know that
yeah,
would just
you know
make.
what?
I know that makes Papo so happy because you know how he is in Christmas.
Yes, I know how he is in Christmas, even in July,
Yes, even in July.
and that's a, when I have him on next week, we're gonna have a discussion about his Christmas love. I think he's told me before why he is like that,
Furnace.
but I definitely want to get him on and talk about that. All right, so I'm going to share this screen. I'm still going to try to do it regardless of whatever this program is doing.
Gotta love that backup lighting. Comes in just when you need it. It's getting dark.
All
Get
right,
really
here we
dark
go.
cloud.
So I wrote out a couple of things while you were talking, right? A couple of things that I think are problems. No, we don't have a digital the AOL. It just seems to, sometimes things don't want the message out. Tina, what did you say? Oftentimes, Black there's a lot of pressure to be overworked in a job and high demand to be active in family and little time for both. That is absolutely true. Hello, sorry for bothering, blah, blah. Somebody just trying to get us to do something. It's a chat bot, don't care. Y'all got the AOL. Okay, we just talked about that. I'm gonna make sure that y'all comments in there, and that's hard. If I'm working 12 hours just for 2 jobs, it's hard for me to be at game and in practice. Exactly, it's very hard. Here are some of the causes that I listed. This is not all of them. This is not an all-inclusive list, right? And I won't say that they're stacked. This could change depending on wherever your focus is in life and where you are in life. But as I look at it, and we'll go through each one of these. White male supremacy and racism. How much do you think white supremacy and racism plays into the interaction between a Black father and his sons?
Heavily.
In what way? Why would you think that it would play a heavy part in the relationship between a father and son?
I just lost my train of thought just now. Uh, it will play a heavy role because you're predominantly the male role model that they see. Well, in a typical household, they see you every day. From the time that they were born to the time that they leave home, or for some, the time that they leave, you are the primary male figurehead that they see. And they will take after that example, whether good or bad.
So I will say this. This is my opinion. You can disagree or agree. But I will say this. A Black father has to navigate in a world where there is obvious supremacy. There are people who would like to harm his son and him, and he has to navigate and teach his son to navigate through that world. And it is a very humbling thing to sit down and tell your son that other cultures don't necessarily have to do, to tell your son, there are people out here who will solely hurt you or seek to harm you simply because of the color of your skin. And have to admit to his son that as he becomes a man, there may be times there is nothing that he can do to prevent that hurt, harm, rather it be mentally, rather it be physically, right? And so all he can do is prepare him so that he can make it home alive, so that he can understand that there are people out here who may kill him just because of that.
Yeah, we see that heavily even with the conversations that we have had. I remember my first conversation of I was 11 years old and we were just driving around. It really wasn't driving. It was just moving around in the parking lot at 11 years old of here's your first taste in driving and you're seeing that people these cops will kill you because they do not differentiate between child and
They
adult.
psychologically have said that they don't even recognize that our children are children. There have
Yeah,
been
and it
multiple studies that have shown that.
is and keeps getting worse because those tests we in our psychology class look at, and when you have people that are in the 60th percentile for that, that's scary because you have a lot of people on the force right now that don't recognize, oh, this is a child, this is a minor. Don't be handling them like an adult.
And
And
Mike says, especially when your son has different views of the world. What if your son doesn't share your view that these things are really dangerous, that racism can
especially
possibly cost you your life,
when they're younger,
right?
they might be a little bit more naive in the world.
And trusting. And you have to, if you're not in their life at an early age, to give them the ability to parse, that could be a problem. Eric says, not realizing the injustice our community has went through to build up to what we have. That history part is another part. We're going to get into that. Good to see you, Sister Regina. I'm glad you're here. David, all birds that and has to tell their children that. It's sad that it's like that, but I disagree. I don't think that all minorities have it in that way, because you can pass, and it has been proven historically that some people have passed, but it's not necessarily easy to pass when you are obviously an African American in a system that has been designed to attack you. But that's a good point. Just want to get through our comments. It's well known that Black fathers have more challenge to overcome to be active family members. Yeah, there's some challenges. Mike, those conversations are harder when your son doesn't see race the same as you do and do what. Yeah, I see what you mean. Look, when you look at race is a huge part of it, and I wanted us to talk that we got a list I really want us to get through, Teddy. So I'm gonna try to push us here. The other thing that I put on here is focus on money. Focus on money. As African American, I'm gonna tell you as a father that you tell me as a son. As a father, my job is to make sure that you have clothes, a roof over your head, something to eat, that your health is taken care of. And in order to do that, it takes work. I think Mike said it earlier. Sometimes people work 2 or 3 different jobs, 4 or 5 different shifts to be able to do that. As a father, I think that affects our time that we're able to spend with our sons. And it may teach them also that the job is more important than family. And I think that can be dangerous. But what do you say as a son?
I do say that can be dangerous because if nobody, there might not be a reason for the black fathers being in the house, but that can definitely contribute to one of them. Of well, I'm out here working, I'm out here on this grind. You don't have, I can't spend all the time that I want with you, and then you have people that are breaking their back their whole life that child is a child. Then by the time they reach about 14 years old, and then you really only have 4 more years before they're an official adult, then they're like, well, that's what I value now is money, and not even what money can do, but what it can buy me, what it can do. It's like, well, since I have all this, I can do this.
So let's go down another
You
path with that, Teddy.
pervert your
Let's go down another path because you break it. I don't cover that. You break a very good point there. So if I teach you that money is the value, money is what you need, and money does have value. But if I overly
yes.
emphasize that, and then you go out and find get rich by any means necessary, right? Then it can open you up to a whole slew of problems. Living out of your means,
Hmm.
hustling, stealing, robbing, dealing,
And then it's
right?
worse because you're not there to say, well, don't do that. And then later on, that talk comes of, I don't know why you're like this. I did all this, and that's how you get those sitcom moments of, I don't know where you got this from, but that I ain't raised you like that. But subconsciously, you might have because you have put an emphasis on money outside of the time spent with family, and unfortunately, you have perverted their way of thinking of this is what is going to happen, and everyone knows that money makes the world go round. So he start your the son, even daughters, they go into, okay, we're going to just make sure that we have money. That's all that matters. And then when we finally find, oh, it wasn't really, because here's what they say on my side with people that I talk to, like it really wasn't all like that. I got all this money here, not seeing the fact that they're living with their parents or doing other means that save them money. But outside of that, oh, they have all this money. I can spend it on this. It wasn't really like that. Yeah, I help with a few bills. I do this, but I still have all this money. Let me spend it on this. And for instance, it could be a bag. Ladies, I get it. It's a purse. It's a designer. It's a name brand, and it look good. But it's a bag. And with gentlemen with shoes, Air Jordans, I'm paying $80. Not you then don't understand the value. You value money, but you don't understand the value of it to spend it on things wisely. Because when you finally get a taste of that world of now I have to work, you start spending it on things that you shouldn't have. And later, a friend that I had, and she was doing that. Now she's 24 years old and always living on her own is always like, if I had done this, if I had, there's always the ifs in the end. Avoid the ifs by understanding your parents, more than likely, I won't say all, did the best that they could with what they had. Don't put yourself to that standard of, I'm going to do what they did or what they didn't do for me. And again, over exaggerate it. So I'm going to put my my funds into something meaningless and then be mad.
The points. Is that it? Is that you got on that?
Yeah, that is true. It's more like 400, $500, not 80. Those might be fake, but still. And then what happens when you outgrow them? Again, you're not. We don't put emphasis on the right things, but we want to be mad and have stake in the game when things go wrong.
Let's hit some of these comments because they blowing these comments up, right? So they blowing these comments up.
I know, right? They are in here
So,
today.
saying that as a parent, that's a difficult thing to have tarnish your child's view of the world. Do agree. Never understand Black people as a whole have been weakened by the government slave rules, giving government assistance to rules you can't get if your father's in the house. And we know that there were rules that that made for aid and welfare. That does play a part into some of the disqualifying and the issues that have gone on with. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I see that the screen was freezing
Yeah,
again.
I
I
see that
can't.
froze. It just happens.
Yeah, but those things happen. Um, my job is to provide basic necessities. Cable and internet is optional. Yeah, I guess it could be, but in today's
Hey,
world,
entertainment comes second when you need to focus on the bare
I don't
necessities.
agree that black women only want the free assistance and let the father be in the home, because I do see a lot of black women who are educated and going out and working and trying their best to raise their family in the way that they can, despite some of the hindrances. So I
And
will say
again,
that to
it's
that.
another stereotype that we have again blown up in our society that is not necessarily true. It's just a scapegoat that we go to excuse irrational behaviors.
Yes, I do agree, my son. It is unacceptable that a black man has to talk with his son, not about relationships, so I said it goes, but how to survive. I completely agree with you, Sister Regina. It is a very hard conversation for a father to have. It is a very hard conversation for a son to receive and then to have to accept and then know one day he's going to have that same conversation with his own child. Especially for you, Eddie, with your you spent time away, although you had my big head to look at. And you, many others. But yeah, I do agree, Eric. It's but see, that's the part. That's why I always say fatherhood is also mentorship, because you got to be able to help people at all levels. And if you're not a good mentor, you probably aren't going to be a good father. If you're not a good father, you're probably not going to be a good mentor. And I think that kind of goes together. Um, I agree. It is very angering. Other races don't give their fathers that. That's the difference. People lost the drive to work hard for their families and rather. I disagree. You will find that the most people who are on public assistance right now aren't black people. They're not. And for the last 40 to 50 years, that has been the case. But it is a stereotype that we throwing out there that is actually not correct. Great point, Steady. The son's perspective of the dad's behavior. That is important. The son is going to have some identifier of what his father's behavior is, positive or negative. The pursuit of money is the
Even
root
if
to
it's even if it's
some
wrong,
evils.
it's still
But
it's his perspective.
still his perspective. We're gonna get back to him a little bit because I want back on our topic though. So when we talked about all this, we're seeing it from the list that I quickly typed out, right? We're seeing socialization issues. We've talked about that quite almost in everything that we just talked about. There's some socialization problems there, right? Because if the father can't be there, if the son is not, if father doesn't try to advocate, it actually goes both ways. If they can't communicate, understand each other, right? If they can't get around some of the issues that they have to face, there's a man has to work by the sweat of his brow, right? He got to work. But how do I take that work and teach my son that the money that we get is what we do, is what we need to live? But we're not putting an emphasis. We're not worshiping money. There has to be something there that basically in that communication that teaches them that. But let's move on to another one. Bad school teachers and discouraging mentors. How do you think that those things affect the relationship between a father and a son?
Bad school teachers and discouraging mentors. That is it's an interesting one because it's just from the perspective that I have, it's you should have a secure attachment with your parents. Now I get it, a lot of people don't have that. But in the terms of when you're talking about black fathers who are actually here, you want to form a secure attachment with your father, your parents. So if somebody else tells you in school of, oh yeah, you're an idiot, you go, shows what you know, and you move on. I, some people have told me to my face, even with school, and when you think back in hindsight, they thought I was stupid. Oh well. But a lot of people, they might take that to heart because that mentor or bad teacher is all they have. When that is the case, then then you can be affected. When that's all that you have, the confirmation is coming from a teacher or a mentor, then whatever they say is grooming you in a place that they want you to do. And a lot of people, and especially coaches, because it's very physical with men, they go and live their life through your child. And if you sit there and go, well, I'm busy, or like the new upcoming generation of fathers in my generation of, well, we're just going, I ain't got the time, or I want to do this, or I'm leaning to my own understanding of what my parents used to do. I'm gonna just sit in the crib all day and just do nothing while they're at school. Then I am leaning to a substitute of parenting,
So
and
that
now we
that
we
makes a good
we have a problem.
he makes a good point to what you're talking about right there. So if you have racism in school, it goes back to our earlier part, right? Racism. If you have racism in school, if you have people who are discouraging you, if you have those who are leading you astray, right? By telling, hey man, why you going to class? Let's go do this, right? If you have girls who are telling you, well, you don't, you so cute, you so this, you so that, right? And your mentors tell you, hey man, go run after that girl. Other than getting your education, other than working a job, you put a value on those people who you look up to.
Hmm.
And you put a value on the bad communication of those who are looking down on you. That's why in that part I said bad school teachers and discouraging mentors. What is a discouraging mentor? Right? That's somebody that's telling you something
Yeah,
that is not going to
and
benefit
moving
you.
on to that, because the teacher side, I was touching more on the teacher side, but bad mentors that can corrupt the teaching of the parent. Of they know better, but they are being encouraged to not do better. So what you have is a classic, who do you listen to? And unfortunately, if it's the path of least resistance, which it often is, because temptation, I'm not going to tempt you with anything that you don't want.
But what if you don't
Then,
have a father that's there that's telling you? If the father is not there to tell you, right, son,
yeah, it's even
I
worse.
faced the I faced the same problems. I've had the same temptations with girls, money, uh, homies, friends. I faced those same things. Let me tell you how I got through that.
And
Let
that's
me tell
another
you
thing,
that.
honesty. If you are not, no, we do not need another generation of, I'm gonna just stay quiet. There's a lot of things that I would want to, that I don't want to know, and I regret that I did. So I'm not even gonna tell you about. Understand that whatever made you lean to that your own understanding, they will do the same thing. And it's much more heavily out here and much more encouraged. So that honesty
It's
of, listen, I have, I get where you're coming from, but I have been down the same line. You do not want to do this. I've seen people that's gone down this path, and look at me, I'm still here. I've done share these testimonies, because if you do not, you might be on the back end of comforting your child through whatever he's going through, other than preparing him or being happy that he avoided a situation.
I
You
completely agree,
you would
Pastor
rather
Sark.
be spared than to have to be delivered from whatever situation they're in.
So Pastor Sargent says anyone whose voice carries more weight than that parent has the potential to alter the thought of their child. And that could be anywhere. That could be a coach, that could be in church, that could be in the community. That it can alter positively and negatively, right?
Even
And
going
so
into uh,
go ahead.
even going into the situation of a church, good fellowship, you get good back into you. It feeds you. Bad bad fellowship does the same thing. You, there's a quote of, show me who you hang around with. I'm paraphrasing, of course. I don't, but show me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are. you are the company that you keep. And unfortunately, we do not teach that, or we do not put an emphasis to it, I should say. And then what we do is we have a problem like this, as it will alter your child's process because evil communication corrupts good
Corrupts
manner.
good man. Absolutely. So now we come down to this other part here, this sweet part right here, right? Something that I think is going on. I know I'm frozen right now. Something that I think is going on in society that has to be addressed, right? Remember, I told you this list is not all inclusive and how it is. I just kind of wrote it out, right? But let me tell you, lack of male understanding. If I tell you that all of this can lead to a lack of male understanding, what does that mean to you? No, let me beyond all that. What do you think is a lack of male understanding?
Lack of male understanding for me is, it sounds like the direction that you were going in was being raised by a woman who doesn't really know all the tendencies of a man. And then there's men who were, they lent to their own understanding of what a man should be, and they were more imitating a man than being their own man, if that makes sense. So that's what I would think that is.
So I'm not attacking women when I type that out. What I mean by lack of male understanding from a father's perspective is if I don't show you the positives, if I don't break out, let's go through all those things we just talked a moment ago. If I don't talk to you about racism and prepare you, if I don't teach you that being corrupted by money is a bad thing, if I don't emphasize the idea of drugs being something that you don't need in your life to survive, if I don't communicate with you by your own words and connect with you and understand that things change over time, if I don't socialize, all
Mm-hmm.
those things are part of the list that we have on there. If I don't hear you when you come in and tell me, Dad, this teacher said something to me that was wrong. This teacher made me feel stupid. You know, I tell a story about how a teacher would have me read all the time. He didn't realize that I read all the time. And I happened to tell my mother that this man was doing that, right? Because my father wasn't around. And I happened to tell her, and she went up to the school to confront him. When you had your issues in college, dealing with a professor, right? Once he saw that you had a strong fatherly male role model, he immediately backed off and you saw that with your own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
The lack of male understanding that I think some people don't get, and it's not just about women getting it, men getting it, is that they communicate in a different way. We confront each other in a different way. That doesn't mean that we beat each other to death. But what it means is, when a man tells you, hey, brother, I don't want to hear that no more.
That he means it.
When a man, yeah, when a man tells you, hey, come here, I want to show you something.
And then
When a
there's the
man is
difference.
connecting with you. Go ahead.
There's the difference between when they do that with women, and I have seen it too, because even using the professor situation that I had, when mom went up there and did it, he might have thought, well, he's just imitating a man trying to put on a strong face. But when you have a united front and you have mother and father there, they realize, oh, I cannot get around this. Same situation with the Randy Coward situation that we often mention.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody sees he was yelling at mom this whole time, but when a man steps in, oh, my bad. All tails get tucked. When a person was trying to service the house and was screaming at mom in the garage, there's different ways that they feel that they can talk to women, and then there's difference when a man steps in.
So if in saying all of that, if you had to encapsulate, what is a male understanding?
So what I would focus now, having discussed that, what I would say the male understanding is it's how to do right. It just how to do right as a man, how to better a situation with your presence than sitting here tearing down or browbeating people with foolery.
with
Because
foolery.
we have enough of it. We have enough miscommunication and enough tomfoolery out here. And unfortunately, because even um, again with YouTubers, and that's not to bash any YouTubers. That's what they
Do
do
you
for a
do you
living, and
remember?
I'm not gonna
I know
bash
your
anyone's hustle.
mother. I know your mother had you all read Proverbs. I know we've talked about that many times. This was when I was overseas. Um, but
Yes.
Proverbs 12:2 says, right? A good man will obtain favor from the Lord, but he will condemn a man who devises evil. Whenever I try to figure out what's a good man, what is a male understanding, right? I believe that a man, right, has to stand up. A man can't be a weak man. He can't be an ignorant man. He has to seek God first, right? The Bible tells you a righteous man who walks in his integrity is blessed, and his sons will be blessed after him. It is important to have that integrity. It is important to stand up and to make all of those things that we just said, right? Important. Sometimes that means that you have to clash against men and women in your circle who will tell
Hmm.
your son something that you know as a man is not right.
And
Because if go ahead.
I recently had a talk with this because our generation we use Discord as a big old chat room. But I was talking to a person who also is taking psychology, and he kept saying that same thing of, well, you're nice. There's a difference between a good man and a nice man. You should always. He mistook nice for naive, and that comes from a place of hurt. And we kind of just broke that down. Of you can be good, and kind is a trait that follows good. It doesn't mean that you're naive and you're going to just sit here and take things from people and just be somebody's punching bag. We, as a man, you are especially if you fear the Lord, you have a standard to live up to. Even with uh, even in the Bible, if we want to use the Bible, it already tells you that deceitful men don't live half their days. It tells you what happens after that. That because the Lord loves you, He'll chasten you, but that also means later down the line He shows you how He will chase you, and He will use your progeny and devour them with wolves. Just imagine you had a son, had nothing to do with you, and now he's dead because you couldn't get your act together. We saw that with Pharaoh. But we do not, we put a temporary emphasis on things that we want that sound good. We call it, we call it a bunch of things. The new term is selective outrage. We want to be outraged at whatever this particular thing is and ignore the other. But you're selective, period, because you decide what I'm going to allow myself to tell you and corrupt your good nature because I can't get my act together. And the Lord does not call for that. And I am a firm believer in you are held liable for the lives that you bring in this world. And
Sorry to say
unfortunately,
it.
we have
You see
conditioned
some of those
ourselves
comments?
to just,
You see
oh,
some of those comments
yes.
because it's not letting me select them.
Yeah, I know. It keeps blanking out sometimes. I don't really know what.
Yeah, it's the feed. It's what it's doing. Um, I
So,
think
no, we weren't ignoring you
can
on purpose. It's just been,
can you hear me though?
yes,
Can you hear me? All right. So
yes.
I'm gonna address one thing here. I see that your mother said, um, she said,
But I think that just dropped completely out. But that's all right. A man, Pastor Sarn says, a man can be a nice and a warrior at the same time. King David was a worshiper and a warrior. Yes. And even the heavenly bodies, as I always say, the angels carry swords. It ain't just like they're there and majestic for no reason. They're virtuous and fit for battle. So don't don't mistake nice for naive because it may end up at the tip of somebody's blade.
I that thing was deciding that this conversation is a little bit too spicy for it, but I gave extra time. So, but look, let me tell you this. I think sometimes your mother makes a point here. I think it is important to have a united front. I think it's important that a mother and a father understand what they're bringing to the point to it, and it's important for the kids to understand. Right? I'm not disqualifying daughters, all of them people out here. What I'm talking about tonight is something that I think we need to talk about. We have to talk about this complicated history for Black fathers and Black sons that has been complicated by our treatment in this country, our history in this country. And we have to talk about it as a real thing because when men lose the idea of a male understanding, right? Then they're going to go to what they think they understand, a primal understanding or a warped understanding. You have men out here right now who, and this has nothing to do with being gay, trans, or whatever. You have men out here right now who
Yes, who just don't want to be men.
understand what it means to be a man, and they push it together to try to say, well, you know what, I'm going to be more of a female. But there's a reality here. There's a natural reality here. No matter what your sexual identifier is, no matter what your there's a biological issue here of how males and females act in nature. We see it in nature, in the creation of God, period. So it's not to say you hate them in any kind of way, but if we don't establish what it means to be a good man, and you only become a good man by also being a good child and learning, right? If you have a bad father, you can't possibly have, a son that becomes a good father. But more than likely, as we've talked about with socialization and everything else, he's going to be motivated. If he doesn't have any outside mentorship, grooming, help, he's going to follow what he sees. Because the person that is most like him is doing negative things.
Mm-hmm.
If tell son, you go lay down with everybody and every woman that you see, women are your recreation. If I tell you that.
And the problem is that then you fall into the trap of when it's too late. Because by the time
Yeah, oops.
when you get into the situation of now they're out here and they're experiencing this pleasure, it becomes your modus operandi to always seek it. And then by the time you, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. I ain't trying to hear that. This is good. And from
Again,
that movie with Eddie Murphy, evil is good. I don't care.
what happens, right? It goes back down again to that proverb, right?
And
A
again,
righteous man, a
with that
righteous man.
saying, yeah, that saying of if this is bad, I don't want to be right. It is in our songs. We know these things. We just don't act on them because again, we are selective in what
So
we care
there's
about at the time.
there's a thing out here, Teddy. I don't know if you've seen it, where people saying I'm not going to leave anything to my kids. Have you seen that?
Yeah, that was back in what
No, they're still doing it.
2018.
Everybody's out here saying I'm not going to leave anything for my kids. They're gonna have to make their own way. They're gonna have to do whatever. Do you think that that's a good thing for a father to do?
No, nobody should be doing that because even in the fact of you disrespect the people that try to leave people something for you and legitimately wanted to, like first is Prince. Prince had died, nobody knew, and then it was funny of he didn't leave anything. What happened is that
He left a lot.
Yeah,
But
left a lot, but nothing was able to be given
it
because
went to
of
a whole bunch of other people. But I
and
asked
then
the question.
you disrespect those people that tried to do that, and it's like you had the ability, but you willfully decided not
No,
to
these
do
people,
it.
listen, these people are they're going to give their money to charity. They're going to do whatever, but they're not going to leave any money for their kids. And some people have actually, wealthy or whatever celebrities have actually cut their kids off as they get older. The reason that I asked that is because I remember, and I know it's some pastors and some preachers that's on here. I remember, right, that when I was reading the Bible, that Proverbs, and I mean, y'all can give me the exact verse, but I remember in Proverbs that it said that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And inheritance does not have to be money. It don't always have to be physical wealth. But what it is you're leaving something to your progeny's progeny based on how you raised your child, based on what you did for your child. So it is important that inheritance, part be understood, right? Because
it also comes with the whole be fruitful and multiply, which when you decided to lay down with whoever you laid down with and you created that life, you basically said, be fruitful.
Pastor said 13, Proverbs 13 and 2. Exactly. You got to leave something. It's important that I leave for you. I asked you boys, you remember this? I asked you boys, I said, if you could take anything away from your parents, but I was asking you all about me specifically. I said, what if you could take something from me that you could have, what would it be? You remember I asked y'all that?
Mm-hmm.
Was it about money when I asked y'all that?
No.
No.
We wanted that knowledge. And then you told us that, yeah, you're going to have to work for it. And it's like, yeah, I know. But wouldn't it be nice if it just came downloaded into your memory already?
It would be nice, but learning is repetition and requirement. I get it. But I asked you all that question because I wanted you all to understand the value of what you get from your parents. It ain't always got to be money. It ain't always got to be property. It could just be what you learned, right? It's just what you learned, right? And I think it's so important. Oh my God. It's so important. She's been on here all night. As if you're the only one on the show. whatsoever. But I get it. I have a mama too.
Yep. We appreciate the support.
We're
Oh,
not up yet
speaking of which,
because
we did not put up that banner, did we?
we did not, and I'm bad at that banner.
Yeah, it's just been too many technical difficulties to keep up with everything.
Yeah, I'm bad at that banner, man. I'm never gonna lie about it because here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. We're not in
Yeah,
no rush.
we're just
Ladies and
here to
gentlemen,
bring out the message.
usually I would let you go within an hour because we're on technical problems and there's certain things I really want to get to tonight, Teddy. So if you have to leave, I understand. I see we dropped down to some people who are watching. Hey, come back later and you can watch. But I want to get to this other side because I'm gonna have your brothers on, and I want to get to this other side here of what I think are ways to make things better. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's kind of frozen again. It's all right.
Yeah, no, it's just the whole freezing thing is on my nerve, but it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Um, but I want to get to that, right? I want to talk about some of those things. So I'm gonna share my screen one more time. If it allows me to, because you know this thing has been acting real stupid tonight. But before I do it, I put a list while you were talking. I put a list of things that can help make better sons and fathers, right? And I think important aspects of that will help us to be better. So let me see. Are you freezing on your side too?
Not for me. It might be because there's a lot of signals up there.
Yeah, it's acting really crazy. But that and the fact that I just think that, this thing has been acting really crazy with us lately, but we're gonna get through it. Anyway, the first thing, but you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
So even though we're freezing, you can hear me. One of the first things I think that we have to look at is spirituality. Spirituality for a son and how it's taught and how they see it from their father, in my opinion, and you disagree, is important. How you understand the value and the identifier of God is important as you see it from your father. I look at Malcolm X. Malcolm X, his father was killed very early in life. He was raised by his mother. His idea, his father was a preacher. His idea of faith could have been corrupted, but even though, especially with the fact that his mother was put into an asylum, they were taken from her. But one of the things that Malcolm talks about in the autobiography of Malcolm X is his belief at some primal level, even when he was a thug, criminal, or whatever, in God. God. He trusted God. Now you could say he was a Muslim, he was Allah, but he trusted God.
There's a whole situation with that I have a very big problem with because I talk to people around the world because just coming from military background, you understand. Hey, it don't matter your ethnic background, your religion. These are the same people that's overseas. My dad is overseas, and y'all get him home. There's a mutual understanding there, and when you have that, all you have is one love because that's what God is. And I'm not going off of your call God and this by this name, where you show faith through these means of work. What I am looking at by, again, what you will know them by their fruit is, does your faith provide work? Do I see the results in what you are doing? So it doesn't matter that, oh, I was that's what I did to call them. Everyone has to have their own salvation. We're not here, especially if you're Christian, the folks of, do you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? Does your
That's why I
faith
didn't say.
provide
That's why I
works?
didn't say religion. I didn't say religion. I said spirituality. I don't disqualify the value
Well,
of
I just wanted to
Christianity.
make the notion, because a lot of people get wrapped up in that so much of spirituality that they automatically default to that. And I'm
But here's the thing:
want want to
God can
convey that
lead
you shouldn't be like
anybody
that.
to Him. You could start as a Buddhist and make your way to a Christian. You can start as a atheist, all right, a Satanist, and make your way to God. So what it comes down to, and why I think that spirituality is so important to make sons and fathers better, right, is that it allows us to talk about it and for you to see it. If you know, when all else fails, if I teach you as a father, when I'm sitting here, like Mike said earlier in the episode, I'm working and I'm doing everything that I can. I've done everything that a man can by working. And I come to you and I say, but Lord, it's in your hands. I can't do nothing else. What does that teach a son? Right? That in the end of the day, as Sister Regina said down here, you got to trust in God.
Mm-hmm.
And teach you to trust in God will open up the door, right, to a lot of different things. Knowledge of self, right? Being able to study, it will remove you from what we were talking about earlier with the whole mentorship problems and other things like that, right? Because I truly believe, and I think you probably got kicked a little bit, but I truly believe that we have to do better with that. We have to teach better with that. And in order for, that's what the whole purpose of this conversation is tonight. Spirituality is not just about you're going to church, which is important and which is good. It's to teach you in your home to depend on God, to trust in God, and to see that from not only your mother, because typically we see a lot of folks get that from, they say, well, my mother went to church. The example has to be set on all sides. And so that's an important thing for us to focus on. Knowledge of self and history. Well, you already know how I feel about that. If you don't know your history and know who you are, before your grandfather passed, I was very happy that we were able to go and trace out his line,
his lineage. All of his, and you get to understand where you come from. But it's important to know that legacy. We, especially in this house, value legacy of people, not just those who are in our immediate family, but those who helped contribute something of value to our family that we might not have been able to do without. People who took the time to grow us by growing our parents, our grandparents. And you should always value teaching that history of, do you know that your grandmother did this and they did something like this? Do you know who you are? Do you know why? You know who you remind me of? You know, do you know who you are? And when we do not, then we have a problem.
And I think that that's important. Then when you understand who you are, knowledge of self, that other part that we talked about earlier, admonishing racism as real. If we do not admonish racism as real, if we do not identify it as a real issue, there are so many of us out here in all communities, black, white, or whatever, who try to make it seem like, oh, racism is a thing of the past. Slavery was this long ago. We don't need this anymore. And we're seeing in society that that is not the case.
Or the time of, again, I see time management on here of waiting too late to say anything and then going, oh, it's in black and white. We actually, you should, of course, know, because you recolorized a lot of things to bring it color back into these old events. So a lot of us go, well, that's old news. That's in the past. It's really easy to look at things in retrospect and say, yeah, that's in the past. But when you see the things are real, then we can work towards doing better. The problem is we do a terrible job at bringing relevancy to the problem and making it real to you of no, this is still a problem. This is still very much an issue. And we have to then wait for it to affect us before we act. And that's not
Well,
something that's
that
not
whole
something
time
that's taught.
management thing, that whole time management thing plays into a lot of different things, but it also plays into that other piece that I often tell people about: mastery, identifying your purpose, knowing what you're here to do. If you can manage your time to that, I need to be the best plumber, electrician, scientist, data analyst, right? Lawyer, teacher that I could possibly be. If you spend your time, as I tell you all, between the ages of 20 to 30, and you try to master everything that you can to be the best at that. For you, I didn't say to be the best in your group. People but for you to understand who you are and what you are and why you're here. That's a part of time management. It's a part of understanding I ain't got forever to do this.
Yeah, I gotta figure out to do something, be the best at something. Because a lot of people refer to themselves as a jack of all trades and master of none. Like, if you're a jack of all trades, you need to at least have mastered something, maybe
Master
two
something,
things.
right?
But
Master something.
you can't just, it's not enough to just say, well, I did it. I used to. Especially, and I would say again with mastery, put it towards a skill that is not perishable. That you have to, because if you know that you have an attention problem and that this is not going to keep my focus and I'm not doing it enough to retain it, then you need to find something else that will force you to be repetitive in it so that you can master it. Because it's not enough to just, well, I did it, and well, I used to do it, and now because I haven't practiced on it so long, I don't know how to do it. And a lot of people in this generation and from the older generations, because a lot of people used to remember phone numbers. They say that they can't do that anymore, even if they try. Again, perishable skills. You need to master something.
Well, it's because we've become so um fixated on things being done for us.
Yeah, it's
And that's a
again,
problem.
that is true. It's very autonomous now. Of I'm just it happens for me. I don't really have to worry about that. Then that should mean that you have more mental capacity to put towards something else. But we don't see it like that. You need to, when you go out to master something, understand that is repetition, stay on it. And if it is not something that you find yourself doing enough of and keep forgetting, move on, find another way. It could be something similar. Same thing with psychology. I see psychology every day, even in our conversation. So of course, it would be an easy field for me to go into. If that's not your forte, then you find something that matches for you
God
that
will
you can
lead
master.
you. I truly believe that God gives us all an identifier of what we enjoy and what we really be good in. It's just that we have to choose it. Um, that last part was knowing how money is used in life. We have a big problem in the Black community, predominantly, where we don't understand. When you got girls putting out lists of where they don't want to be taken for dates, when you got young men going out and spending $250,000 on a gold chain, um, our identifier of what money means is jacked, and we've lost ourselves with that. We've lost ourselves with that. We
Yeah,
we 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 basically
as
worshiping
we just
money,
discussed before, they we value some of the most craziest things, and we
cars, and I gotta have this, and I gotta be blinging like this, and if I need to go to this place, and people need to see me as a boss, and this
and
and
then it's really
everything
the fact of
revolves around
what are
money.
you trying to prove? That is what I say with that question of what are you trying to prove? Of don't go here, don't go there. Who are you trying to prove? Are you dating this person because you want to spend time with them, or is it good for your social cred of he took me out today here, or I was able to take her out here, and you're sitting there taking your girl out to McDonald's. She should be. We have a lot of problems in society, but again, if we really want to go into that whole dating thing, which is a whole nother topic, we're well over the hour, so gonna be
Now
succinct
that
with that.
I really wanted
But
just to hit
when we
this stuff. Go ahead.
when we if we really want to go into that, you really got to ask yourself, um, are you trying to be alone? Because a lot of things that people be doing,
It's but see that I believe that males they go out and seek. Males push that. Males corrupt that. The lack of males corrupt makes corruption too. The lack of of fathers teaching sons and sons learning from fathers, as we talk tonight, pushes these regular thoughts, right? Pushes these things that put us at jeopardy because you're not teaching properly and you're not mentoring properly. So I wanted to have this conversation tonight. Um, I started your mother, I think it was your mother put it in here. Part two. No, I'm gonna have every one of you all next week. I'm gonna have Sean Anthony on, and we're gonna hit similar subjects, right?
mhm,
Because here's the thing. What we also got to understand is that every level of our children, like I've been blessed to have four sons, right? But one son is not the same as the other son.
yeah,
Each is different.
definitely, everyone
Each
is
has
different.
its own perspective, right? Just the same with your daughters. But when we talk to you all, I want to be able for you to get you to verbalize. This is not necessarily we have these conversations. We have them, right? Father and son. But this is for other fathers and sons out there to inspire them to have the same conversations, right? Because it's needed. It's needed.
And to coach
Sometimes
them into
it
knowing that it's okay to have that conversation, not just sitting there sitting on that knowledge. Because one thing that we just lost granddad. One thing that you can't say is that he didn't speak his mind. And because if you sit on what you believe, then you don't get hurt.
I was thinking about that yesterday. 10 years ago, I lost my granddad. 10 years ago, almost to the day, I lost my granddad. And I understand why, you've talked about it, um, of learning from older men, learning from those who came before, your elders. And I learned a lot from granddad, and I miss him terribly. But one thing I can never say is that I didn't spend time with him. I didn't talk to him.
Made use of
I
the
didn't
time
get
while
it.
you had it.
I got an idea of where some of this that's in me, where it comes from talking to him. And I know from what we've talked about the same situation with you and your grandfather. And so it's a thing that has to be discussed. It's a thing that has to be discussed. And there should be reverence, there should be honor given to our elders. And take that time to learn. Just as because they're fathers too, right? If they weren't fathers, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, you wouldn't be here.
So whether it be good or bad, you're going to learn something, right? And those bad things can sometimes just be there to say, hey, don't do this.
Yeah, don't do this. You're gonna learn either way. There's a good. There's a how do you put it? There's an example, and then there's a lesson.
Yeah. Don't be the example.
Yeah, don't be the example.
I appreciate doing this. I know we had some technical issues as we were going through it, but I refused to stop doing this, and I knew we were going to go about an hour and a half. That's my plan for each one of y'all, because it's a deep conversation. And again, it's for us to really start to have this conversation. I've talked to, I see Mike's probably not on here right now, but I've talked to many different guys recently saying we got to start this conversation because we're having problems.
Now, even with Mike, we wanted to interact with his sons and his opinion, because that talk that he had on the whole where do you go for dates, we could have been on there for even more hours than he was, because that's a whole conversation. Let's just say if he'd have dropped the link, I'd have been there, because
yeah, it's a
that's a whole conversation for a whole lot of people, because a lot of people are coming up with that, again, misinformation and that following mentality of somebody said it, so it must be true.
Yeah, and times are changing. Times are changing. All right. Well, I think this was a good session. We had a good amount of time spent talking about these things, regardless of whatever technical issues that we were having. I hope that the audience got something from it, or those who will come back and watch later or whatever. But I just want to make sure that what we're doing here on Erudition is touching into a lot of things. Now, because this is history and because we got 5 minutes left, I'm going to tell you this. I was sitting down. The reason why I wanted to do this is because I was sitting down reading the Mississippi slave narratives. And I was getting a recurrent thing in some of the slave narratives where people were talking about, I knew my mother, but I never knew my father. Something year old, 90-something year old men still upset because they didn't know who their father was. And from women who were breeders. I don't say that to be wrong, but this is what they were termed to be.
And
having
we
24
saw
babies.
that firsthand
Right.
when Granddad was alive. That's how he viewed his father. He didn't really know, and he didn't even know that he was claimed on the birth certificate even.
So
we're not that far out from slavery.
That mentality of being removed, and then to teach the father that he has to keep a distance from his son because he has no rights to his son. Those things are so important, and those things are in those narratives. If I would admonish you to go, you can go pull them up for free online. Go read slave narratives from South Carolina, Mississippi, Alabama. Go read what your ancestors, what they actually said, right? And how they felt. I saw a thing that they said, how would Malcolm X feel if he was alive today? How would Dr. King feel if he was alive today? Well, you could go read what they wrote. You go read what they said, and you can kind of make an equivalent. Okay, I understand how he probably would have felt. It is important that we stress this idea of what it means to be a father and to be a son. It is not always easy. It is complicated sometimes. Sometimes you want to choke your son completely out, right? But the reality is they come through you, right? And they're here because God blessed you with them. Males exude the chromosome makes another male. That's just a biological fact. So God allowed you to emit that chromosome to create that man for whatever reason it may be. And you need to honor that. Right? And it does become painful. Mm-hmm. I look at my son across the screen and I see a younger me, right? But that's my job to prepare him. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a good show. I got to get out of here. Teddy, I appreciate you taking the time to be on here today. I know an hour and a half is going to be a little bit long, but that's what I wanted to do with these shows. We're going to do another one with Sean Anthony next week. The
Erudition Generations will be on next week. No, we weren't on this week. We're working on that schedule.
Okay.
We'll be on.
Then I'll have Elliot on, and then Maddie. And we'll talk at all different levels of understanding at different ages of what that means. And then I think lastly, I'll have all of you all on at one time, and we'll kind of go over some of the things that we talked about. But I appreciate everybody. Thank you, Pastor Sarton. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Regina. Mike.
Yes, Pastor Sarton,
Eric,
Mike, Nathan,
all
Eric.
of you all. I can't name everybody. I saw you all were lighting up the chat earlier. There, y'all got out of here. But I hope that you come back and you watch it to the end. Please share, subscribe and support the Erudition Network. Help us to grow this network and to keep pushing. We are growing. We're steadily growing. I do appreciate it. Please feel free to donate. Anything that you donate is used for the program. It goes up with the different things we do in the network, and that will be greatly appreciated for the boys shows, for Tina's show, for the one that I do tonight, like on Thursdays. So whatever help you can provide will be greatly appreciated. Even if we forget to put the banner on here, we have Cash App. Just type the Erudition Network. That's all you got to do. And whatever you give, $2, $3, $5, $6, $10, $20, $100, $1,000, we will greatly appreciate it. All right. Anything, I'm gonna let you close out, Teddy. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Thank you for tuning in to the Erudition Network, Black History and Interactive section. We will see you all next week with Mom Show on Adroit Living.
All right, everybody. Until then, you all have a blessed rest of your weekend, and we pray that God keeps you and motivates you as you go forward. Thank you. It's not doing anything.